Goosebumps Horrorland Heads You Loose by Earl Stein, Part 3. Guards! Guards! Call for the guards! I could hear the blacksmith's booming voice behind us as we ran. Our sneakers kicked up the yellow dirt. The two horses went. We ran past the stable along the row of open shacks. Heads poke out from the little huts. Two shaggy-haired kids pointed and shouted at us as we darted past. A woman carrying a small brown dog stood in a doorway, her eyes bulging. Ryan and I took past. Wooden cart brimming with hay. A man sat up drowsily in the hay as we went by. Two women dressed in layers of rags with long scraggly hair falling from their grey scraps jumped back when they saw us. They hugged each other, terrified. Guards! Guards! I could still hear the blacksmith's alarmed shouts. Why was he calling the guards on us? Who did he think we were? The war, it's gone on forever, Ryan said breathlessly. There's no way out of here. We need a place to hide, I said, panting hard. And then I let out a startled cry as I tripped over something in the dirt. I fell hard and landed on my elbow and knees. Oh! Pain shot up my body. Ryan pulled me to my feet. I turned and picked up the object I had tripped over. Ryan, check it out, I said, holding the handle with both hands. I raised the heavy blade in front of him. Remember? We saw this during a class trip to the museum. It's a battle axe. Huh? Ryan started at it. You mean like the knives used in battle? I didn't have a chance to answer him. A net dropped over us, a metal mesh net, so heavy it slammed us both to our knees. Through the net, I saw uniforms, long black coats, black trousers with red down strips, and the sides, shiny black boots. A group of guards. Let us go, Ryan screamed. He thrashed both arms at the net, but it was too heavy to bolt. Let us out of here, I cried. One of the guards leaned close to the net. He wore a black and red scarf under his long coat. A square red hat tilted on his head. He waved a sword in one hand. He had grey cold eyes and a trumpet smile on his face. Captured, he cried to the others. We have captured the two villains, and look, guards, they are pretending
They still have the weapon they used to kill the prince. Chapter 11. This isn't happening, Ryan muttered. Did we step into an old movie or something? It's like we went back in time, I whispered. But that's impossible, right? I always get dizzy when I am afraid, and believe me, the whole room was spinning. The guards had dragged us into the castle, and now we were standing in an enormous chamber. It looked like it beyond in a video game about battling knights. The grey stone walls rose high around us. They were covered with old-fashioned weapons. Round metal shields aligned on one wall alone. Pointed lances hung crisscross above them. A shiny suit of armor stood at one tall door. It gripped a battle axe in its metal glove. Near the ceiling on one of the walls, a row of black and red flags jutted out on long poles. A dozen of swords with wide metal blades leaned against each other. It was draped with dark red curtains. Flickering wall torches made the light dance over us. guards were surrounding us kept disappearing into the shadows. Then they would reappear in the firelight, their faces hard and cold under their square hats. A black uniformed guard in high red boots stood across the room to greet us. He gripped a sword at his side. Waved red hair popped out over his forehead. He had tiny round green eyes and a clipped red mustache. "So you're the young assassins have been captured," he cried. His voice echoed off high stone walls. "We are not assassins," I managed to choke out. My voice trembled. So did my legs. "We didn't kill anyone." He stared hard at Ryan, then at me. "Are those strange costumes supposed to frighten us? To confuse us?" Strange costumes? I was wearing school clothes, a blue t-shirt and white cargo shorts. Ryan wore faded jeans and a black polo shirt. "Why didn't you flee the castle when you had a chance?" the guard asked, still eyeing us up and down. "Don't you not value your heads?" I gasped. Ryan made a gulping sound. "We are not assassins," I replied. "You're making a big mistake. We didn't kill anyone. You've got to believe us." "We don't know where we are," Ryan declared. "Really? We don't know who you are. We don't know anything about this." The guard tossed back his head and laughed. "Do not take me for a fool," he said. "Were you not captured with your weapon in hand?" "No, it's not us," I cried. "We found it in the dirt." His smile grew wider beneath the thin red mustache. "I promise you will confess to your crime before the day is over." "This isn't going well," I whispered to Ryan. "We need a good escape trick," Ryan muttered. He was trying to sound brave, but his face had turned pale. I could see his chin quivering. "Do not speak of escape," the guard said. "You will not be leaving this castle with your heads." He waved his men forward. "This way," he ordered, "to their doom." Chapter 12. The torches along the wall flickered and danced as we marched under them. In the dim light, saw a scrawny rat scamper under the heavy red drape. Chill after chill drove my back. These men weren't kidding. They really believed Ryan and I were assassins. It should be easy to prove that we are not killers, I thought. But will they believe us? Will they even listen to us? The guards forced us to another chamber, a smaller room with dark green walls. A huge chandelier hung down from the ceiling. It cast a bright shadow from the hundred of candles. Flames danced in a tall fireplace. Torches blazed along the walls. Beneath the chandeliers, two men were seated in tall chairs at a long table. They were eating lunch. Their food was piled high on round silver plates. They were drinking from tall metal goblets. I stood up as we walked in. They both wore long purple robes. The tall one was completely bald. His head glowed under the bright candle. He had coffee-colored skin, dark eyes, a long pointed nose, and deep scar that ran down one of his side of his face. "Bow your heads before the Duke of Early," the guards ordered us. I didn't think it. I bowed my head. The man beside the Duke had the hood of the robe pulled over his head. His long white sandy beard came half down his chest. His dark eyes studied us. His eyes were clasped tightly in front of him. Bow your head to Henry, the Princess Wizard, the guards ordered. Anne and I bowed our heads again. Henry's hood fell back. He had flowing white hair to match his beard. The Duke turned to the wizard. I shall bet you the girl confesses first, he said. Would you like to bet 5 dumas? Henry frowned and shook his head. No more betting, Alfred, he said sharply. Your constantly gambling has gotten into too much trouble before, Alfred. Have you not learned your lesson? The Duke shrugged. An innocent bet to pass the time. You have this betting sickness, Henry scolded. The Duke smiled at that. Not a sickness, an enjoyable game. Henry made a disgusting sound. He stepped up close to Ryan and me. His robe smelled bad, as if it had never been washed. He rubbed a hand through his thick beard and stared at us. Henry waved the guards back. They retreated to the doorway and stood there, stiffly alert. You assassins will be brought to a quick justice, he said. But you're wrong, I cried. We are not assassins, the Duke snickered. Then why would you disguise yourself in those strange costumes? He demanded. Strange costumes? I stammered. This is what we wear to school every day, I said. Both men snickered at that. They exchanged glances. We are telling the truth, I cried. My voice came out high and shrill. Why didn't you sneak onto the castle grounds? The Duke asked. We didn't sneak, I said. We don't know how we got here, Ryan exclaimed. Henry stretched his beard. The Duke laughed. Surely you came up with a better answer than that, he said. Why don't you say you arrived on a cloud or on the back of a dragon? They both laughed at that. How did you get here? Tell us, the Duke insisted. Really? I cried. We don't know. Where do you come from? Henry asked. Tampa, Ryan and I said together. A fantasy kingdom, Henry said. The prince has a whole library of maps, and in all those maps there is no kingdom of Tampa. Can you not give an honest answer to a single question? The Duke demanded. Must I conjure a spell to draw the truth from you? Henry asked. Ryan turned to me. I think we are in major trouble here, he whispered. Ryan was right. They didn't believe a word we said. Every answer we gave dug us deeper into trouble. I took a deep breath. Something strange has happened, I told them. Ryan and I came from a different time. I think we are gone back in time. The room began to spin. I felt dizzy again. I recognized I was terrified. Was I really talking about time travel? We really don't know how we got here, Ryan said. But look at us. We are just kids. No way we are assassins. We didn't kill anybody. More lies, the Duke said softly. Very clever lies, Henry said, but lies just the same. Very clever disguise, too, the Duke said. They really do look like children. He rubbed the scar on the face of his side, thinking hard. Then he turned back to the wizard. What do you care to bet on how old they really are, Treasumas? Henry waved the Duke away. No betting, Alfred. Please try controlling yourself. Henry turned away from the Duke and frowned at us. His dark eyes were cloudy. Your violet has tossed the kingdom into sorrow and chaos, he said. Princess Warwick shall have his revenge. Huddled close to me, Ryan made another gulping sound. My whole body suddenly went cold all over. No one likes to hear the word revenge. My mind spun with ideas. I thought about my dad's best escape trick. No way I could help Ryan and me. You need a tall mirror to do it. I struggled to think of a way to explain to them what had happened, but what would make them believe us? We last tried. I picked up the battle axe from the ground. I mud. Actually, I tripped over it. I was running and I tripped over it. That's right, Ryan chimed in. We were both running and Jessica tripped over that weapon. I saw her pick it up and... Why were you running? Henry asked. Because you were guilty, the Duke answered for us. And you were trying to escape? You will not escape your fate, Henry said, lowering his voice. Would you like to make a small bet with me? The Duke asked. I bet the Prince of Warwick have your heads off before night falls. No, please, I cried. They motioned the guards forward. The guards moved quickly and grabbed our arms, holding us tightly. The Henry and the Duke of Early turned, walked through a door and led the way to a long, dark hallway. The guards forced us to follow. Where are you taking us? I demanded. To see your victim, the prince, Henry replied. I don't understand, I said in a trembling voice. My legs were shaking so hard I could barely walk. Our victim, the prince? What do you mean? They didn't answer. The guards pulled us forward. Our shoes scuffled along the hard floor. Flickering light danced over us from a long row of walls. Torched enormous paintings lined the walls. Dreary portraits of grim-looking kings and queens wearing grey crowns and dark fur robes. Their expressions were all stern and cold. None of them at the end of the hall. The Duke and the Wizard stepped aside as the guards pushed open a door. Then the two men led the way into a bright chamber. The sudden light made me blink. Then my eyes adjusted. I gazed around quickly. The walls appeared to be made of gold. Sunlight flooded in through tall window. Gold drapes hung at their sides. Dark, heavy furniture filled the center of the room. Here we are, Prince Warwick, the Duke announced. Against the back wall, a man sat at a long writing table. My gaze stopped at the writing quill in his hands. Then I raised my eyes, and Ryan and I both opened our mouths in a scream of horror. The prince had only a lump stub on his shoulder. He was headless. Chapter 13. My knees bulked. I started to fall, but two guards held me up. Beside me, Ryan screamed again. No, it's impossible. I wanted to look away, but I couldn't take my eyes off the headless man. He wore a ruffled white shirt. The collar was pinned shut. Above the collar, the stub of his neck was pink. A dark scab had formed over the top. I shut my eyes. I felt my stomach lurch. I struggled to hold down my breakfast. He had no head, but he's alive. He had to be a fake, Ryan whispered. Some kind of magic trick. I lowered my eyes to the ruffled shirt. Was the next stub a fake? Was he hiding his head under the shirt? No. It's real, I choked out. I swallowed again and again. My stomach lurched. It only I could look away from the dark, ugly scab. The Duke and Henry stepped up to the prince. I tried to stay back, but the guards pushed Ryan and me closer. The Ryan's magic is more powerful than your axe, Ryan, Henry said to me. He learned magic from me. Suddenly, his entire life, this magic is more powerful than anyone dreamed. His magic always allows him to live on even though you chopped off his head. But, I sputtered. I felt sick. The room tilted and spun. Your Excellency, the Duke said, sweeping back his robe to a down bow. I am pleased to report that we have captured the two assassins. They were caught with a weapon in their hand, Henry added. The headless prince froze for a moment. Then he raised his ruffled sleeves and began to write furiously on the parchment in front of him. The quill made a scratchy sound as he wrote, leaning over the table. When he finished writing, he lowered the quill. Then he raised the parchment so we could read what he had written. Where's my head? We don't know, I cried in a high, shrill voice. The words spluttered out. We don't have anything about this. Please believe us. We don't know belong here, Ryan said. We don't even know where we are. We were screaming at a headless man. He shook the sheet of parchment in one hand. Then he pointed to his word again. Where's my head? We didn't know. Really? I cried. He grabbed his finger at the parchment again and again. Where's my head? Then he lowered the parchment to the table and began to write again. His hand moved quickly across the pages. Then he finished it. He raised it for us to read. Why did you take my head? I was too frightened to reply. I knew I'd be seeing that horrible stump in my dream if I lived longer enough to have dreams. I turned to Ryan. His eyes were covered by sunglasses, but I could still see the fear on his face. He couldn't speak either. Will you not answer Prince Warwick's question? Henry demanded. The Duke played with the scar down the side of his face. I'd be willing to bet that I could get them to talk, he said. He then turned to the prince. Some pain will loosen the tongue. Perhaps, Your Excellency, they will answer your question after a few hours in a torture chamber. Oh, a terrifying moan escaped my throat. The prince shook his whole body as if saying no. Then he began to write furiously once again. Few seconds later, he held up what he had written. Do not waste time. Take them to the executioner. Bring me the heads when he has finished. Chapter 14. No, please, Ryan choked out in a hoarse voice. Please believe us. We're telling you the truth. We don't know anything, I cried. Please. I jerked one arm loose from the guard's strong grip. Then I twisted my body hard, trying to free myself from the guards on my other side. But he had on tight. Both guards tightened their grip on my shoulder. I couldn't move. I turned to the